How does the system change if you're trying to close these bigger deals?
It doesn't change much in the sense that that's more about strategy and sales cycle. What happens is you're still going to go through. So what's the difference between a sale forget about someone goes into the deli and they get to pick ham or roast beef and you sell, try the roast beef. That's not what I'm talking about. But that's transactional sales. I'm talking about someone like influence, where let's say someone's going to go buy a online course and it's $2,000. And it's going to be a decision they make in that day or not at all, right?
Right.
So in that case, there's one strategy about how you would go using the straight line system. Maybe about like there's an open, there's a close, and either it ends in a close or you'll probably never speak to them again. It's not going to be about a series of selling them on the next step. What happens in long sales cycles, there's a close in every single sale. Every single conversation has a close. But the first initial contact might be closing them on even accepting your information because they can find out more. So, how do you get someone to take the first step in the process? So in longer sales cycle, the sales would be divided up into steps. There might be multiple decision makers involved, but each and every contact has the same core elements going on. You have to get them sold on that, whatever you're talking about at that moment, it's got value. They can trust you. They connect with you. They can trust the company that stands behind the product, and then moving them on to the next step in the process. So the idea is that, there's always a sale made on every single call. The sale might be that you're selling them on the idea that I'm going to ask you questions and I'd like you to answer me honestly and forthrightly because it's in your best interest to do so. Right. I'm going to sell you on giving me your email address. I'm going to sell you on setting up an in-person appointment. I'm going to sell you on bringing this up to the next level. There's always a sale made in each. So it's just simply understand that it occurs over a longer period of time. And ultimately, there's going to be that one final sale where someone says, yes, we're going to do it. But there was 10 other closes that went in before that.
Got it. And, there's lots of people would say that, these things just take a while, right? This thing will just take 12 months. This thing will take 8 months. This thing will take 10 months, which I don't really 100% agree with. There must be ways to shorten these cycles down, right? And so, what are some strategies to maybe shorten it to be, say, half the time or less than, what everybody across the industry is saying that's just how it is?
Right. So one of the big things, I do a lot of, consulting, right? Where I, work with a company individually, right? And one of the biggest, things that you could do, one of the most important things is collapsing their sales cycle down. So if a sale's taking 9 months, you can take that sale and make it 6 months. What are some of the things that you could do? Well, number one is first understanding what's happening. Why is the sale taking such a long time? Is it because there's multiple decision makers? Is it going to be because they have to do other integrations along the way, like they can't make it? Is it because there's a budgetary issue where they only spend money over a certain time? Every sale has its own unique parameters of what's driving it to take so long. So number one, the first thing that you do is look at the sales. Say, well, what are all the different? Right now, I'm using it's a 5-touch till I can close. Or what can I, very often you can combine 2 of the touches into one, because what happens, let's go back a step. Sales is all about the transference of certainty, that the product has to be absolutely positively certain that the product is the best. It's the best fit for them, most cost-effective, cost-benefit ratio, right? So each step in the sales cycle is designed to make them more certain. It might take an initial call to pique their curiosity. Then you would send them information that has your deck or your brochure. Then you set up a second call and you go through more of the features and benefits, and then you get it up to them. So depending on what's going on, you're always selling them on the next step in the process. Very often, what weaker salespeople do is they will divide it up into too many steps. Like you can usually accomplish 2 steps or even 3 steps in one. Like, just for example, finding out how many decision makers there really are and trying to get those decision makers on an earlier call versus going through 5 different calls and running it up the chain and trying to get to the right person on the line straight away. That's a big one right there. And another one is also, how do you go out there and like, one of the biggest mistakes I see is when someone's like trying to get an appointment with a large company, and they'll say, okay, when would you like to meet? And the person will say, let's say right now we're end of May, end of April. I have an opening on June 15th. And you're like, great, let's pencil it in for June 15th. Versus saying, I see you guys are up in Sydney. I'm actually going to be in the area on next week, both on Tuesday and Thursday. I'd just love to stop by. Like, I'm already there. What's a better day for you? Tuesday? Like, just something simple like that of telling them, like, I'm already in the area. I'd love to stop by, versus I'm going to make a special trip just first to get a higher conversion rate of saying you're already in the area, but not leaving it up to like months between cycles, right? That's number one. And then there's also things that you could do with your marketing materials that help support you. And each time you're on the phone or you're in person, you're moving the sale towards a close, but in between that, they're looking at things, they're doing their background checks by having the materials that you send them be the right materials with almost answering objections in that. You can actually get moving along quicker by sending the right materials as well. So it happens both while you're selling and also just while you're in the process of sending out your marketing materials.
Okay, so basically you're condensing the sales cycle, you're combining a couple of different steps into one, you're shortening the time between the meetings. But there are just some things that you can't get around. For example, the budget cycle, the integration.
Well, it's like, yes, like, again, every sale is different, right? Like that, in the sense that, what are the unique factors that are causing the sales cycle to extend out?
But is there anything that will hold you back from selling? Because, hey, they said this. Now that stops you from saying, well, okay, I believe you and I'm going to stop trying to push it. Like, is there any scenario where you personally would say,
yes, I'm not going to, if I'm selling a product that I know is a complex product that needs to integrate into a multitude of the company's operations, that it would be ridiculous for me to try to pressure someone to buy it before they've had all the other people look at it and make sure it's going to be a perfect fit. You're just going to kill you. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot every time. So the idea is to know what you're selling and what's the reality. Every product has its own best sales cycle. And the idea is you want to collapse into that best sales cycle. It's different for every product. Some products, by their nature, they're going to require their complex integrations involved, their massive expenditures. They're going to take longer. But there's things that you can do to get to that point quicker. You're not going to take a 1-year sales cycle and do it in one call, but you might collapse a year into 6 months. Or you might also structure your payment plan so they can get it now and pay when the budget renews or something like that. There's a lot of things you can do strategically like that as well.
Yeah, great. So what are some of the best ways to kind of stop the competition from beating you, like at the same deal? Like how would you approach the competitive landscape right now, specifically on an account that you're trying to win?
Well, I think number one is, one thing I never want to do is compete on price. I think people competing on price is like a dead end. If you're just trying to be the cheapest guy in town, there's always, then you're really leaving yourself open to undercutting you. And it's always like, you never know if you have a deal. And like, what's one of the classic things in solar where like everyone's undercutting everybody. So if you're trying to sell your solar system based on price, it's like really, really frustrating. Versus, outlining what your unique value proposition, okay, and separating that out from other people. So basically having something that other people simply can't compete with. So I focus on the actual product, the value proposition, the unique offering about. That's what I would do. And I always do that. I try to find market that cannot be duplicated. Sometimes it just can be, and there's no way around it. But I always do my best to try to find out what that unique proposition is and focus on that as my main benefit.
Yeah, great. And so what are some of the things that will hurt a sale or that will kill a sale?
So, one of the biggest things is the salesperson that tries to get into rapport with someone by, just, oh my God, you like fishing? I like fishing. And you spend an hour talking about fishing. The over schmoozer, the disingenuous salespeople that basically, whatever the prospect likes, they like, and you start talking about it for an inordinate period of time. It has nothing to do with the converse that's germane to the sale. That's a major telltale sign that you're not doing business with an expert. You're doing business with a desperate novice who will do anything, say anything, talk about anything to get the sale done, right? That's one thing. Another big thing is is not asking enough questions, especially in a bigger sale. It's like, I made this mistake sometimes in my earlier days where like I would go in there and I would think you assume you know what the prospect wants without really asking the questions. It's a big mistake that gets made a lot. You assume that you understand what their outcome is. You assume that you know what their highest pain point is. And very often there might be multiple pain points that you're trying to resolve, but there's one that's the biggest pain point, and that's the one that's going to get especially the tougher sales over the line. And I think what sales people often do is they use their own map of the world and assume everyone is thinking and feeling like they are, when you might have no idea what this person might be thinking or what they really want. The only way to really effectively avoid that is to ask questions, to ask enough questions, to ask them in the right order. Another big mistake is by asking invasive questions too soon, versus from starting off with very non-invasive general questions and then slowly peeling back the layers. That's a cardinal mistake. The other big mistake is that I really see is people spend way too much time with people who are not qualified. Like they're not actually interested in what they have. They couldn't afford it even if they were interested, but they try to pitch everybody versus sifting through a prospect list and finding out the ones that are potentially right for the product and then focusing on closing those.